I didn't film anything for the second half of yesterday, but I just went to a couple historic sites or places run by the National Park Service, insert photos here, and then got some dinner and started driving towards home. While I was getting dinner, I figured out a little game plan of what I'm going to do. My plan was to go to some national park sites in New York, but all of them are closed. So I'm taking what is essentially like an hour and a half detour going through Pennsylvania and going to some historical sites here. I don't know how many I'm going to go to. I can do like 7 or 8 of them that are all around here. Maybe not all national parks things, but just stuff I want to do. So we're just gonna go to them until it's kind of time to go home, and then we're gonna drive home. But yeah, we're in Pennsylvania now. So I just went through the visitor center at the Portage Railroad National Historic Park, and what I learned is that this is the railroad that essentially connected Philadelphia to the western United States, because there's 2 canals, but before this railroad existed, they had to unload all the cargo onto like stagecoaches and mules and things and pull them over the mountains. So they used stationary steam engines to pull the trains up and down whenever it first started, and it connected it to canals on the other side of the mountains, as well as the Ohio River to the Mississippi River, all the way to New Orleans. Right now I'm going down the boardwalk to where the old rail station was/is. There's also a historic tavern that opened around the same time. All of this happened in the 1840s. So behind me is the Lemon House, and then that's the power station for the trains. Both the buildings are normally open whenever it isn't plague season, so can't go in either one of them today, but I figured it was still worth driving by here since it was on the way home. It's a pretty cool park. Not worth driving super far out of the way for, but I'd drive like an hour, maybe even 2. It's because there's a bunch of other parks over here as well. So I just did the 3rd mile walk down a pretty steep hill the entire way to go see this old stone bridge that they built to service the existing road that went through where they wanted to put the railroad. So I get down here, and this is what you get to see after all that walking. It's over there. So that's nice. I could have just drove to it. And now we do the long walk back uphill. The park itself is pretty cool, like because of the history and all that. But this little walk, 2 out of 10. Would not recommend. I also wore the wrong shoes, and it's rocky. Just left the Flight 93 Memorial, took a few videos, a few pictures. I'm going to the highest point in Pennsylvania now, which is called Mount Davis. I spur of the moment kind of planned this. I finished all 3 of those national park sites quicker than I thought I would. And so it's like an hour detour on top of my 2-hour detour to go see the highest point in Pennsylvania, but I figure I'm here, why not? It's only an hour, not 7 away from where I live, so let's go for it. I'll be there in like 20 minutes. So, in the 1750s, before the French and Indian War had started, Western Pennsylvania was technically owned by the British, but the French were here anyway, trading with the Native Americans. So the British sent George Washington out to say, hey, stop that. And then a battle ensued, and there's arguments about who started it. So Washington and his guys ended up killing a French general, and they were pretty pissed about it, understandably. So Washington retreated, built a fort, and waited for the French to come attack. Eventually the French did come attack, and they beat the crap out of the British, which drove them out for a while. Then the king said, hey, let's actually take this back, and started the French and Indian War. But this historical park is about the fort that Washington made whenever he first retreated. This park is also about the National Road, which is now Highway 40. Whenever the war was starting, they were cutting a road through to provide soldiers and all that to fight against the French. And after the war had ended, Washington purchased this land, and he started to convince Congress to build a road to easily connect the West with the East, so that way they trade within their own country instead of trying to find other channels to do so. The road lasted for a while and then was eventually replaced by the railroad, because that was a easier and more effective means of transporting things versus stagecoaches. And then it eventually regained popularity, in a sense, due to cars. Sections of it still exist, which are along Highway 40, and it was kind of interesting to learn about. But George Washington was one of the key people in getting that off the ground. So that was the National Historic Park. Now I'm gonna head home. It's been a fun week. And I don't really want to go home, but here we are. Just 5 hours till we get there. I'm actually getting home at a reasonable time, which is one of the first times that this has ever happened. So, and with that, this little video series of my road trip to Maine is over. I'm still planning on making new videos once a week, still uploading them on every Monday. So if you want to see what's next, don't forget to subscribe, and you should be able to see something next Monday.